This is Ben, the amateur exegete, and you're listening to episode number 1 of Bible Study for Amateurs, the weekly podcast which aims to pique your interest in biblical studies. Today's episode is Weird Scripture. Saul, the first king of Israel, was in trouble. The mentor he routinely ignored, Samuel, was dead. His son-in-law David was constantly one-upping him, and to make matters worse, the Philistines were threatening war against Israel. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled, 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 5 reports. He tries to get help from Yahweh, the God of Israel, but is ignored. So where can he turn to get a little peace of mind? Well, he does what many people today do to get help with complicated problems and to feel better about their future prospects. He goes to see a medium at Endor. And no, there were no Ewoks there. Since no Israelite, not even the king, was permitted to consult with mediums or wizards per Leviticus chapter 19 verse 31, and since he'd made a big deal of expelling mediums and wizards from Israel per 1 Samuel chapter 28 verse 3, Saul not only went to visit the medium at night, but also had to disguise himself. In fact, the medium doesn't even know it's Saul that's come to her. So much for being clairvoyant. He asks her to bring up none other than Samuel, the prophet of Israel, who had recently died. At this point, she figures out that he's Saul, but it's too late. Something spooky is happening. I see a divine being coming out of the ground, she tells him. A divine being? Saul asks her to describe what she's seeing. An old man is coming up. He's wrapped in a robe, she replies. Saul knows her sorcery was a success. Samuel is back. Now, I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story. You're welcome to check out 1 Samuel chapter 28 if you really want to find out what happens. My only point in talking about it is to say this. The Bible is weird. Now, I don't mean to say that the Bible is a little odd, like the two kids in study hall that sit in the corner playing Magic the Gathering. Okay. One of those kids was me. No, I'm talking about stuff that, well, you might find in a deck of Magic the Gathering cards. Take, for example, dragons. Magic is full of them. There's the rare 6/5 red Covetous Dragon from the Urza's Destiny expansion set. There's also the sort of creepy Bone Dragon from the 2019 core set that can be resurrected from the dead if you pay the price. It's been a few years since I've played Magic, but I can remember having a few different decks where my strategy involved building up to some powerful beast, like a dragon, that could deal my opponent some damage and get me the W. How often I was successful at doing so, I've selectively forgotten. In any event, the Bible has dragons too. For example, Job asks in Job chapter 7 verse 12, "Am I the sea or the dragon that you set a guard over me?" Or Isaiah chapter 27 verse 1, which reads, "On that day the Lord with his cruel and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will kill the dragon that is in the sea." Or Revelation chapter 12 verse 3, "Then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads." Of course, more often than not, these dragons represent something other than dragons, but that's a subject for a different episode. Dragons aren't the only weird thing found in the Bible. In Leviticus chapter 17, verses 6 and 7, we read of goat demons, entities that were apparently at some point worshipped by the Israelites. In his commentary on the text, Jacob Milgrom suggests that this might be a reference to satyrs, not like Mr. Tumnus in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Not that he was that great of a goat in the first part of the book. Oops. Spoiler alert. I should have said that first, huh? Instead, these creatures were associated with idol worship, and in the book of Isaiah are said to be part of what little is left when Yahweh overturns Babylon. It will never be inhabited or lived in for all generations, but wild animals will lie down there, and its houses will be full of howling creatures. There, ostriches will live, and there goat demons will dance, Isaiah declares in Isaiah chapter 13, verses 19 through 20. As a side note, ostriches can be pretty scary. Don't judge me. The Bible's weirdness is part of its charm. It's an ancient book, written by ancient people thinking with ancient minds and ancient understandings of the world. So, yeah, we'll encounter mediums and dragons and goat demons and more. It'd be weirder if we didn't. But it is also the Bible's weirdness that reveals just how complicated it is. As Kristen Swenson notes in her 2020 book, A Most Peculiar Book, The Inherent Strangeness of the Bible is a cacophonous gathering of disparate voices. This means that at times, understanding the Bible isn't simply a matter of reading it. There's always more to the story than what we find on the surface level of the text. The Bible is, in Swenson's words, problematic. That is, it's way too complicated than we give it credit for. In the next few episodes of Bible Study for Amateurs, we will look at 7 ways Swenson says the Bible is problematic or complicated. Well, that's all the time we've got for now. We'll see you next time. And remember, in the words of Richard Elliott Friedman, one does not need to deny what is troubling about the Bible in order to pay respect to what is heartening. See ya.